Hi, everybody. Welcome to In the School Parking Lot. My name is Paul. I'm doing this from beautiful Roseville, California. I want to ask you a question. What if I told you that the most important lesson your child learns this year is not in their math book, their science class, or even their history textbook? What if it's the answer to a much bigger question? Here's the question for today in the school parking lot. What kind of country do you believe America is? Because before a child can decide what America should become, someone has to teach the child what America has been. If our children are taught only about our nation's failures, they will inherit shame. If our children taught only our victories, they will inherit pride without wisdom. But if they're taught both, the failures and the founding principles that made reform possible, they'll inherit something far more valuable. And what is that? It's the truth. That's what we want our children to have. So today, let's talk about whether America's story is being rewritten from In the School Parking Lot. Again, if you like what you hear, we have a Venmo account and a PayPal account. We'd love to have your help. Please subscribe, like, and share this episode. So we want to welcome you back to In the School Parking Lot. Before we begin, I need to give credit where credit is due. Today's episode was inspired by historian William J. Federer and his outstanding book, which is right here, Socialism. While the thoughts you will hear today are my opinions and analysis, Mr. Federer's research challenged me to think more deeply about how America's founding principles, constitutional system, and civic education have shaped our nation. Whether you ultimately agree with every conclusion or not, I encourage you to read this book for yourself. One of the hallmarks of an informed citizen is a willingness to examine original sources, consider different perspectives, and then reach thoughtful conclusions. With that in mind, let's ask a question every parent should be asking again. What vision of America is our public school passing on to the next generation? I love that question. So let us be clear from the beginning. Most teachers enter the profession because they care about children. These teachers work hard, often with limited resources, and many do an outstanding job. So this is not an attack on teachers. It's a conversation about educational philosophy, curriculum, and what we choose to emphasize. Over the last 2 decades, many parents have noticed a shift. America's failures, slavery, segregation, the internment of Japanese Americans, the treatment of Native Americans are receiving greater emphasis in many classrooms. Those events are absolutely deserved to be taught in our classroom. We should not avoid the truth. They are a part of our history. But here's a concern, if not the concern. When students repeatedly hear about America's sins while spending comparatively little time studying the nation's founding ideals, the nation's constitutional safeguard, its economic system, and our nation's remarkable progress, the students may leave school with an incomplete picture of our country. The Declaration of Independence proclaimed that all people are created equal. The Constitution created a government of limited and divided powers. The Bill of Rights protects freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to assemble, and due process under law. Those principles became more than words on parchment. They became the standard by which Americans challenged injustice. The abolitionists argued that slavery violated the Declaration's promise that all people are created equal. Frederick Douglass asked America to live up to its founding ideals, not to abandon them. The women's suffrage movement appealed to the principle of equal rights. Martin Luther King repeatedly quoted from both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, describing them as a quote-unquote promissory note that America had yet to fully honor. In other words, the very documents that acknowledged liberty also became the tools reformers used to expand liberty. America's history is neither a story of perfection nor merely a story of failure. It is the story of a nation continually challenged to live up to its own highest principles. If students learn primarily what America did wrong, without understanding the principles that allowed Americans to correct those wrongs, the students may conclude that the nation itself is fundamentally flawed, rather than recognizing that its founding ideals have repeatedly inspired reform. Some educational approaches encourage students to question traditional narratives, examine systems of power, and challenge long-held assumptions. Supporters argue this develops critical thinking. Critics worry it can become one-sided if students are not also exposed to competing viewpoints. The philosophical foundations of our constitutional republic and the enduring principles of individual liberty. That raises an important question. When students are encouraged to question inherited beliefs, what ideas replace them? Some parents are concerned that increased emphasis on government solutions, identity politics, or critiques of capitalism, free market, can leave students with a more favorable view of a collectivist policy or policies than an individual liberty and free enterprise. Whether that reflects intentional curriculum choices, academic trends, or the perspectives of individual educators, reasonable people disagree. But it is a conversation worth having. Now imagine America 30 years from today. If civic education continues to receive less attention than ideological debate. Imagine a generation that sees the Constitution as outdated rather than enduring, that knows every failure of the founders, but very little about why they separated powers, why they protected free speech, guaranteed religious liberty, or insisted that government itself must be restrained. Must be restrained. Imagine a generation that expects rights, but rarely discusses responsibilities. Generation that trusts government more than families, more than communities, more than civil society. A constitutional republic cannot endure if its citizens lose confidence in the principles that gave it life and continue to sustain it. Fortunately, parents are not powerless. Parents, ask to see the curriculum, read the assigned books, attend school board meetings, know your state's academic standards. I know it's a lot, parents. Read the Declaration of Independence with your children. Read the Constitution together. Discuss the Federalist Papers. Paul, this is so much. I know, I got it. You don't have to do everything on the menu. Read Frederick Douglass, read Abraham Lincoln, and Martin Luther King Jr. Help your children understand that loving your country does not mean believing the country is perfect. It means believing the country is worth improving. Teach your children that disagreement is not something to fear. It is one of the strengths of a free people. Teach the children that rights and responsibilities always belong together. I'm going to say that again. Rights and responsibilities always belong together. and remind the children that every generation inherits the blessings of liberty only if it is willing to preserve them. The future of America won't be decided only in Washington or Sacramento or even your child's classroom. It'll also be decided around dinner tables, living rooms, church, synagogue, temple, in our neighborhoods, and in conversations between parents and their children. Our children are watching. They are learning. And whether they become defenders of liberty or simply inherit someone else's view of America depends not only on what happens in school, but what happens at home. Parents are a child's first teachers. Schools are important partners in education, but the responsibility for raising informed, thoughtful, and virtuous citizens can never be delegated entirely to someone else. So until next time, I'm asking you to stay involved, stay informed, and never stop asking what your children are being taught, because the future of the United States is being shaped one classroom, one family, and one generation at a time. I'll see you in the school parking lot. Thank you.